Hey, welcome to Beyond Organic Wine. I'm Adam Huss, and this is the second stop on our tour of Quebec. And by our, I mean you virtually or vicariously with me, but also the Maxime and me. And if you didn't listen to last week's episode at Domaine Bergeville, please check it out. I explain who Maxime is and why he's the hero of this journey to the future of wine. I should offer some color commentary caveats about my experience in Quebec culture. And I just want to give a shout out to Elodie Oliver, who is co-producing the conference on hybrid grapes with me in January 2026 at UC Davis. Elodie is a very proud Canadian, and she'd love it if you didn't think of Canadians stereotypically. Yes, my first meal in Quebec was moose that Maxime hunted. And yes, I did eat some maple candy that was made by some of his family. And yes, I did witness one of my guests for this episode stirring a biodynamic prep with a hockey stick. But as stereotypic as all that sounds, Quebec, or at least my experience of it, far exceeded these fun little bits. The Quebecois are bilingual, and as you'll hear in this episode, sometimes trilingual, broad-minded, and socially and philosophically quite liberal. I was welcomed graciously everywhere I went. My lack of French was generously accommodated, and I found unpretentious charm and a good sense of humor to be pretty much ubiquitous. I saw parking spots reserved for pregnant women and ate some of the best cheese of my life from local producers. I'm told that so many partners there choose to share their lives without involving the state in their relationship, by getting married, that the Quebecois are considering changing the law so that they don't give preferential treatment to married couples. That's all before I get to the wine. And not to mention their universal health care. On a really serious note, I have a friend in wine who, in his early 30s, had to have surgery to remove a brain tumor from his brain. After what his insurance covered, he still owed $120,000. As well as all the costs of being off work and recovering for a few months. In Canada, it would have been completely covered. No bill. Anyway, my point is that Canada is awesome, and Quebec is cutting edge, sophisticated, and delicious, with amazingly lovely people. Oh, and I mentioned this hybrids conference that Elodie and I are producing. It's on January 26, 2026, 126, 2026, 126, 26. And it's called Embracing Hybrid Grapes in California. More to come, but it's going to be amazing. Save the date. As a pagan, this summer solstice is one of my holy days, I guess you could say. I celebrated it by planting vines and being outdoors most of the day and catching some lightning bugs. And the day before, I gave a talk at the Carnaval Brettanomyces in Holland. Sadly, I wasn't in Holland. I was hologrammed in via droid to pass on directions for how to destroy the Death Star to the rebel troops. My talk was titled Making Wine for My Community, which sounds about as tame as a used slipper. So I made it my mission to make it the most subversive, most revolutionary talk at the Carnaval. I asserted that vinifera culture is dead and that it's time to re-ecologize our wine. I talked about how our laws and our language enable the enslavement of ecosystems, how we learn to dance from plants, how symbiosis is strength, and much, much more. And I'm going to be editing it and finding the best way to record it and make it available, but check out Carnaval Brettanomyces next year. I know it's a scary name for those of us in wine. We want to avoid Brettanomyces for the most part, but it started as kind of like a geeky but avant-garde beer gathering, and it has stayed pretty geeky in the best possible way and has expanded to include cider and wine, and it's pretty cool. Now for this episode, I'm excited to introduce another incredible and relatively new Quebec winery, Domaine Au-delà, and I love that it was named for a tree. I met that tree, and it is incredible and worthy of having a winery named after it. Louise, with her partner Sylvain Lalonde, and it's Louise McDonald, farm Oak Hill biodynamically and make 0-0 wines from all hybrid grapes. Louise makes two versions of a wine from the Petite Pearl grape, and each of them were respectively the best versions of that grape that I've ever had. Two totally different things. Fantastic. Totally 0-0. There's some great extra audio that I'll be putting on Patreon for subscribers where she talks about how she makes one of them. It's kind of a unique process. This audio that you're about to hear has some barking dogs and some wind noise while we're outside. Max at one point had to fend off a guard dog that was bigger than him. I tried to edit around the worst of this as best as I could, but please enjoy the authentic audio texture of live recording. The recording starts with a discussion of a deer fence set up by Louise and Sylvain. I just want to give you a picture of it. It's like a 3D deer fence, if you know what those are like, but where the inside fence isn't two-strand electric fence, but a normal pasture fence, like maybe a 5-foot pasture fence. And then there's a single piece of electrified horse fencing, you know, the sort of wide tape fencing that's easy for horses to see, about a meter outside of the pasture fence. It's the first time I've seen a deer fence done this way, and it seems really smart, especially if you already have a normal pasture fence for sheep, goats, cows, etc. And the horse fence tape seems a smart way to go too, to be really noticeable by the deer and hopefully be a little bit more intimidating for them. It makes me think the inside fence could almost be anything, even like a split rail fence or something like that, because it seems like you might only need the outer part to be electrified anyway, and it's the distance and the depth of field between the two obstacles that creates the daunting element for the deer and makes them too afraid to try to jump. Having said all that, I visited multiple wineries there, and only a couple had deer fencing. Deer are everywhere. I mean, it's a deer-heavy place. It just seems random. Why do deer terrorize some vineyards and not others? I see entire vineyards in this area, in the Finger Lakes of New York, unprotected from deer, and others inside 8-foot fences. And sometimes they're like across the road from each other. Some people have amazing success with the standard 3D fences, like 2-strand on the inside and about 3 feet in front of that, a single strand of braided electrical fence. And other people have miserable failures and have had to upgrade to like an 8-foot fence. I even had some Haudenosaunee women over to the house last week, and they told me that they knew someone who put up a 12-foot fence and the deer still got in. They were joking that the deer pole vaulted. Anyway, I'm beginning to think we are totally ignorant about deer for the most part, and we have a lot to learn. I guess that's redundant. We're totally ignorant, and we have a lot to learn. After planting vines this solstice, I thought I protected all of them completely. I'm putting individual 5-foot chicken wire cages around each vine and tree combination so that I don't have to put up a deer fence and keep the deer out and exclude them from their beautiful land that was their land before I got here. But when I went to check this morning, I realized I'd completely spaced and just left one totally unprotected. So it was just a bare naked plant, no protection, no cage, out in the open, and nothing happened to it. I mean, did the deer just not get to it yet? Like, if I left it a few more nights, would they finally find it and eat it? Or maybe there's enough other food. I mean, the grasses and forbs and things growing, the plants are all, over waist high right now. Or do they not like that kind of grape? Maybe they don't like Cayuga White. That's what I was planting. Or what? Could I leave them all unprotected and nothing would happen? I know there were deer all over the hillside last night. I even snuck up to within 25 yards of one just before my walk this morning, and it was right next to all the vines. Maybe they just missed that one, or maybe they have no interest in it. Do you know how much time and money it would save me, save everyone, if we understood deer better? Anyway, this isn't about deer. It just starts that way. It's about a couple of Quebecois who stir Equisita prep with a hockey stick, think holistically about their wine growing, and make some of the finest biodynamic wine by adding nothing and taking nothing away from what their Oak Hill gives them. Enjoy. Yeah. And
yes, it's a deer fence.
Does it work?
It does.
Really?
It does. I mean, it has worked for us.
Okay.
It's been we did since the beginning.
What kind of maintenance do you have to do for it? Do you have to do?
Well, yeah. After winter, we have to refix the tapes and all that.
Do you bait it so that they come up and
we don't.
get zapped or anything?
Okay. No, they're just.
They've figured out to stay away.
I think they have. Okay, good boy.
They're very visual too, like it's a bride.
Well, you know what it is? It's the
tapes, like the.
It's the difference. It's horse tape. It's the same, but the thing for deer is that if you put them at different levels, now they're a little bit closer than they should be. It kind of screws up they don't have peripheral vision, so they're mixed up, so they don't try
Yeah.
to jump. But
Right.
they do say that you could put peanut butter to attract them so they get zapped. But
Right.
so far we're okay.
Okay.
So here we are. This is
Lovely.
Domaine.
Yeah.
We
Beautiful.
have-
This is all you all the way to the
yes,
road here?
Yeah, and
what a beautiful farm.
Did you come from that way or
that way?
from that way? Okay, so we're about a mile that way. It's a long, skinny
Really?
plot, but about 70% forest,
Wow.
and then all this here, and that's hay down there, hay field.
How
over
many
there.
acres is that?
It's about
Hundreds.
110.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
But it's long
It's
and
50
skinny, so
hectares.
it,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like we go up to the end of that horse.
Oh, we're almost at the edge
Yeah,
here. Got
we're
it.
like we're more than halfway up.
Okay. Oh, up there. I see. Up
Yeah,
up
the
at
end of the vineyard is that's our neighbor up there, other side
Oh,
of those
okay.
trees.
Okay.
This is
Gotcha.
my husband Sylvain.
It's beautiful.
Hello.
Thank you. Adam
Hello.
and
Pleasure to meet you.
Maxime, qui est
Sylvain.
responsable.
Ça va bien? Oui, ça va très bien, très bien. Wow. On est chanceux d'être ici.
Oui, oui. Nous aussi. En fait, c'est.
Ouais, ben oui, cette année, hein, c'est pas.
Oh yeah, the weather's been.
Oh,
terrible.
oh, yeah. Lots of rain so far this year.
So.
Well, how are you trellising these? You're trellising these to allow sheep in there?
Yeah. Do you want to? Do we need to? Do we start or do we?
Yeah,
Do you want
I'm-
to sit down first? What do you want to do? I mean, you're
I would
in
love
charge.
to, if you want to walk in a little bit and just
Okay.
talk to me about your vines, that'd be awesome.
Okay, are you going to be taping? Or?
I'm already taping, so I can cut out anything you want me to cut out. But I wanted to hear the French introductions on that.
Oh, yeah.
That was the. Yeah. Okay.
Good boy.
Okay. All right.
Lie down.
Join if you'd like, please.
Ouais, si tu veux, Sylvain, est-ce que tu veux te promener? Yeah, he's busy.
Yeah.
We're like.
Yeah. You got a lot of vines to take care of. It looks like. How many?
So we have 3 hectares.
3 hectares.
altogether.
Okay.
We started with 1 hectare, which we planted in 2016.
Okay.
So it's been 9 years for this side. And then the other 2 hectares we planted in 2021.
Okay.
Yes,
Beautiful.
they're all Nordic hybrids, and
Okay.
they're all trellised to high wire cordon.
Yeah. So can the sheep go year round in there because of the
no.
high wire?
They could, in theory, but we also have new baby plants.
So
So right now
Yeah,
they're at the other end.
it would take a lot of work to protect the baby. There's enough
Well,
of the
we
babies.
might end up doing it because right
Got
now
it.
the sheep they don't have access to enough space. Sorry for the barking dog.
Oh, it's all right.
Okay, Burl. Maybe we get out of his
Okay, Burl.
out of his
Good boy.
champ de vision. Okay, Naya.
Hi.
Oh, good fille. Cindy, just let her smell you. Okay?
Okay. Hello. Hello. Hi. Hello. Yeah? Smell good?
Come in. Okay, girl. Good boy.
He's so concerned.
Well, unless he sees that she's getting the guest, but he's not. So,
Ah, a little jealousy kicking in.
so on this side we have 3,000 vines.
3,000, okay, in 1 hectare.
Yeah, and we
Okay.
have 4 varietals.
Yeah, these are tightly spaced. This is
Well, a meter,
a meter,
yeah.
right? Yeah,
2.4 meters
in between the rows.
between the rows, and a meter between the plants.
Nice. And I see you're growing secondary trunks on some of these.
Yes, well, that's part of the learning.
Is that insurance for freezes?
That's the idea of
Yeah.
having a second trunk, but we are. It's not insurance against freezing so much because it actually caused the plant to be weaker at the beginning, and we did have frost damage. We had tumeur du collet.
Crown gall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, because the first winter after planting was horrible, it was very cold, and we tried to do 2 trunks because we were told that would be a good idea, but I think it's caused more problems over time. Like I'm only just learning now. I'm actually repairing the pruning mistakes of this side right now, and I'm going to be doing that for the next 3 years probably.
Yes, exactly.
You know, we've had grapes and we've had wine, and it's
Right,
worked, but
right.
it's just not ideal
Right.
for the health of the plant.
We were just talking about that in the car on the drive over here. How how common it is to jump in without, with little knowledge about this stuff. I mean, like we learn as we do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
that's our story.
You're cane pruning from the top. Then it looks like.
We are, but the idea is to move to spur pruning.
Okay.
Once it's repaired.
Okay.
This is Petite Pearl, which
okay.
is about
yep.
Tom Fokker varietal.
Yeah. I hear he visits this area.
He does. Yeah. Well, he has Alain Bro, who is our main pépiniériste here in Quebec. He's a close friend of Tom.
Got it.
He's done tests for him and so forth. But yeah, he's a fan. He loves coming up here.
We were just drinking his Petite Pearl with dinner last night. He made a very nice one, I should say.
Yeah.
Next to
Yeah.
Where are you?
Canton-Latley.
Oh, nice, lovely. It's a commercial vineyard, or no, just for you.
Backyard.
Just a home wine.
Nice, very nice. Yeah, so Petite Pearl is a beautiful grape. It's hard for people who aren't used to hybrids to sort of name, what does this feel like? What does it taste like in terms of a vinifera grape? But
I try to avoid
unique.
that, actually. Just try to, rather than have people always associate with vinifera, it's just like it's its own thing.
But that's their frame of reference,
right.
so you can't blame
for many
them.
people it is, yeah.
But, and especially sommeliers and people who are trained that way, they are
right,
that they can make the links. But
the gatekeepers, you mean?
Yes, exactly. So
we have to appease the gatekeepers. Tell us more. So this is a new thing that's happening here. There's 3 here.
It's because we are one of these is going to disappear.
Got it.
Because there's too much going on here in terms of the sap, the flow of sap, which is something that has been really researched after a couple of Italian guys, Simonite and Search. I don't.
And
them,
several others too.
So a lot of the pruning now, that is really taken into account a lot more than when I started. So here, because of these old gnarly things, it may be that we're going to get rid of one of them. However, they're both producing very well. So the question is, and I just haven't got to this one yet, I have a couple of guys who did the pre-pruning here, and they left this for me because they said probably Louise will want to decide.
Gotcha. That's good. Sounds like you have some conscientious pre-pruners.
Yes, no, they're very good. We have seasonal workers from Guatemala, as a lot of people do in Quebec. And the question is, do I keep this knowing that I'm going to get rid of this, but then I'll prune this a bit more. There's too much here right now.
Do they have to speak French, the seasonal workers?
There's actually they don't, because they're in agriculture. But for other seasonal workers who come to Canada to work in industry and so forth, there is a new rule that if you work in Quebec,
but agriculture gets an exception.
Agriculture, I believe it's an exception.
Okay.
But, in any case, we speak Spanish, so it's not a problem. On some farms, it is a problem.
Okay.
And there are French courses available for them. They took some last year, so they say a few words, but it's too easy because we're speaking to them in Spanish. So.
Yes. Could you, by the way, introduce yourself and where we are and the name of your
good
this
idea.
whole
Hello. I'm Louise MacDonald, and my husband is Sylvain Lalonde, and we started this project in 2014. We had the idea. It was really about this place that called us to do this. This particular plot here was had been abandoned. The people who were here before had horses, and they really were using it for grazing, but it was really sad looking. And it was close to the house, and we would see it all day, and we said, this it's not right. We have to do something with this hectare, because it was actually this spur here.
Yeah.
We have to do something with it. We have to plant something. We have to, it's not right to just let it go to seed like that.
Yeah.
And we were thinking, what could we plant, and do we really want to get into planting, because we're not from that world at all. We're from Montreal and the business world, and but we thought we got to do something. And it just so happened that we were in Italy that summer and tasted natural wine for the first time at Paolo Bea, which is a wonderful vineyard in Montefalco. And I just had a an aha moment, and I said, wow, this is so good. We've been drinking wine all our lives, and this is so different, and it's so fantastic. And Sylvain tasted it and he said, it doesn't taste like wine. But for me it was kind of like a revelation. And then I just kept thinking about it, and the way he was describing what he was doing or not doing, because that was the part that was the most attractive. For me, making wine was always very mysterious with recipes and equipment and buildings. And he was just, letting the grapes grow and pressing them and making wine and not adding stuff. And so I thought, wow, I could do that and make this great tasting stuff. And then I thought about this. We could do it right here. Hey. So that's how it started. It was really all about this place. And then we were thinking, okay, what do we plant? And we did get a couple of ideas about hybrids that we could plant, because we didn't want to cover our vines in the winter. We didn't want to have like a greenhouse with oranges growing in it. We wanted to have grapes that wanted to be here and that wanted to fight the weather and so forth. So we decided on hybrids. I visited Deirdre, and I was kind of inspired, of course, as everyone is who goes there, but that you could really make good wines with hybrids, because that is still a concern for a lot of people, and there's also a lot of possibilities to drink great wines for less money than you pay for a local bottle. So, there's some structural problems that are still there, but all this to say, we love the wines, and we said we could make good wines with hybrids, so we're planting hybrids. Yes. So we planted 2 whites and 2 reds on this side. Saint-Pépin and La Crescent are the whites, and Petite Perle and Marquette are the reds. And then when we planted in 2021 the other 2 hectares, we repeated those 4 plus a couple of other Crimson Pearl, Frontenac Blanc, a few others.
Beautiful, yeah.
So what else can I say about?
Well, I want to ask you about your experience with those grapes. How are you farming them? I mean, you have sheep. Do they come in at part of the year, or?
Yeah. The sheep was we're biodynamic. We're certified biodynamic. Actually, one of the 3 with Bergeville and Hypervenche. Certified biodynamic, and it's important in the biodynamic mindset to have an animal presence. They don't have to be at the foot of the grapes, but having animals is important. In fact, biodynamics would prefer we have cows also, because then our manure would come from the cows and so forth. But there are a lot of exemptions for vineyards who don't even have room for animals. Right. But we decided to have sheep, and at the moment they're at the foot they're out of the vines, because we had problems with the sheep eating the small shoots in the past. The smaller, the plants that were still low to the ground, that hadn't grown yet. But that is the idea, that they would mow the grass, and for sure in the fall, once after the harvest, it'll be perfect. We let them loose, and they go. We can walk around.
Yeah, when things harden off in here. So how do those grapes perform for you? Which ones are doing the best, or which ones are the easiest to grow for you here?
They're all. I love them all.
Okay.
In the new vineyard, I don't have a lot of experience of Crimson Pearl, for example. It's just starting to produce now. Frontenac Blanc is great, even though we didn't have any on this side. But the 4 originals that we planted here, Marquette, Petite Pearl, Saint-Pépin and La Crescent, they're great. Fantastic. Saint-Pépin needs to be, it's not self-pollinating. Right. So we mix the rows basically with La Crescent. Okay, because they're approximately around the same time. And they produce well. They taste great. One of the things we did, since we didn't know anything about winemaking or hybrids, was to only produce mono.
You're being attacked.
Mono varietals.
I got a new friend.
Naya. Okay. No. Yes, so the animal presence thing is important. I think it's about the systemic mindset of biodynamics, and the farm is a whole unit and so forth.
Yeah.
So where were
How did you get into that?
I'll just do this. I spent a career as a leadership and sort of adult learning in organizations consultant. And systems thinking was one of my favorite approaches to intervening in organizations, because many times, people would call you about an individual person or an individual problem or a department, and you can't solve one thing without taking into account all the other forces and relationships that exist. So for me, when Paolo Bea in Italy was describing biodynamics and how he was farming, it kind of clicked with all that. I said, oh, I love it. Just the concept that
like holistic thinking about the
holistic thinking about farming, about making wine, about everything, and it includes the person, because there's a whole commitment to learning about yourself when you're spending your time observing, talking to the plant, trying to draw conclusions from what it's trying to tell you. Same thing in the cellar. When you're tasting what the grapes are giving you, you're sort of saying, okay, what do I do with this? As opposed to thinking in advance, here's what I want to produce, therefore I need to add this, that, and the other thing, to make a perfect cake. Mm-hmm. It's a different way of thinking. So it's, that's how I got into it. I was already in it. I was already
that's lovely.
Thinking of things in that way, and everything is related. Yeah.
I'm also curious, just a random question, but how in what specific ways were you inspired by Deirdre?
That she was making good wine with hybrids.
Yeah, just simply that. Yeah.
Because I didn't have enough experience of hybrid grapes. Yeah. We don't have a great history in Quebec of making wine. We have a great history, but it's not a history of making delicious wine.
Right.
We've had pioneers here for 35 years who are still going strong and really doing great. But at the beginning in Quebec, basically people were trying to reproduce French wines, and how could they grow Cabernet Sauvignon, and how could they actually make wine with it that would taste like Cabernet Sauvignon or like Bordeaux?
Right.
So it wasn't. They weren't working with what they had. They were more trying to accomplish something with tools and climate that was not available. So what I liked in Deirdre's case was that there was no history of winemaking in Vermont, really.
Right.
She was inspired by her life, drinking wine and serving wine and all that, and spending time in Italy and discovering hybrids and trying it.
Yeah.
She also had some riparia on her property that were also inspired her. She had plants that she had grapes that were already growing there. So I think it was that. It was that. You can really make wine in northern climes that tastes good.
Yeah.
And I also read some contrary things, because how did I learn to do this? Well, I'm still learning, obviously. I'm not there at all, but a lot of reading. And I read, Deirdre had written her first book. I read a lot of things. I read a lot of contrary things. Like I took a workshop with Clark Smith in postmodern winemaking.
Sure.
Who I think you also interviewed.
Yeah.
So, because I realized in this world of grape growing and winemaking, for every kind of credible scientific paper that tells you one opinion about something, you'll find another one that tells you the exact opposite. If you look hard enough.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, okay, the decision is up to me. It always comes back to me and what I do with what I've got.
Yeah, and probably observing what your specific land wants to do and what it does best.
And how it tastes.
Right.
What comes out of it and so forth. So, but did I answer your question about Deirdre? It was really about...
Yeah. And
of course, her place and, her... How they talk about what they do it's extraordinary.
Yeah.
She's definitely inspiring. And she's inspired a lot of offshoots that are really successful too, which is great.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that I realized over time, though, is that where she is not the same climate as here.
Right.
It's colder here. The season's shorter. This year it's rainier there.
They get a little more Gulf influence. Yeah. Gulf Stream.
But anyway, that's one of the things I've learned is how to work with the weather. Like any farmer. When you become a farmer.
Yeah.
Do you want to continue that way, or it's more of the same?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. how's it going? Like I'm trying to think what questions I want to ask and if there's any. The wind is the one thing I'm conscious of that will be an annoyance on this if we are too much in the wind. So I was like, maybe we should head somewhere.
Go inside.
Yeah.
Can I just ask, since
Yeah.
you're gonna, I
Please.
suspect you're gonna cut that part, so more of a curiosity. But you know, when I see your vines, they look like what I see on Deidre's, like cane prune.
Yes.
So, but now you want to convert it to cordon. May I ask why you're deciding to make that change?
It's just I don't necessarily want to convert this side, but we are growing that side with an idea to have one cordon that we don't replace that often with spurs.
Why?
Just to keep the spacing, to make it easier to prune every year.
Okay.
Here it's a disaster pruning on this side, and at the moment, I'm the only one who can do it because I have to make the decisions about the extra trunks and about. There's way too much on here right now.
Mm-hmm.
So a cordon would be just snap, keeping the number of buds that you want.
Exactly. It would be great.
Mm-hmm.
If you look in the Simonitten search book, that's what you see. You see on low trained vines, but you see the spurs are just like every year. You see each year on the same spur. It's really cool.
You can see
one day maybe, but.
But I mean, there are advantages to cane pruning in that you reduce some of your fungal pressure load from year to year. It doesn't overweather on the cordon, so you don't have to worry about that.
True, if you have a sick one, but it's always good to have, if it's not a trunk that like Alain was telling us, you should always have two trunks. It can be another cordon that is coming.
Yeah.
As a reserve. The other thing that we have here, and you already mentioned it, is the wind.
Yeah, I was going to say.
It's windy here all the time,
I
which
was
is
just
great.
thinking that. Yeah, you probably have lower pressure just from that.
We have lower pressure because of that, for
That's
sure.
amazing.
Of course, with this year's rain, we already had to spray the whole thing. Well, we sprayed the Petite Pearl early in the summer early in the season during dormants because of black rot that we've had for 3 years now.
Okay.
So we're trying to get ahead of it a little bit.
Yeah.
But the rest, we've already started some excoriose and anthracnosis and things that are showing up. So we want to get there earlier.
Yeah.
Because one of my learnings, I was very idealistic at the beginning, and I said we don't need to spray. We're biodynamic. We'll just spray teas and stuff that's good for the plant. And
Look at that regal
yes,
pooch.
very regal. She knows it. Ok, je peux t'enlever ça là? Ok, reste là, reste mon chien. What was I saying?
You were thinking you were going to be no spray.
I still am. I don't want to lose that. But I was like stupid, because I thought, let's just wait until it appears, Well, okay, so how bad does it have to get before you do something?
Yeah.
And I waited too long. So
Right. So what happened when you waited too long?
the first couple of years, we had production, but we had a lot less probably than we could have.
Yeah.
But then my answer in those days would have been, but that's not our goal. Our goal is not production. Our goal is just to help the plant do what it wants, right?
Right.
But then at some
I love
point,
your idealism. Go, yeah.
But then at some point, the financial,
right.
things come into play. I think we should go where he doesn't see us.
Ah, great idea.
Or we can go inside, actually.
Yeah. I see some vines growing along the side there. Are they just...
they were here already. Those
Oh.
are our table grapes.
Nice.
So this was a barn.
Okay.
It was a barn. A horse barn.
Oh, yeah.
Which we started out, this is the employees' room, but we can sit here for a moment. We started out with a very small cellar, we continued this room a little bit.
Okay.
Up to about here.
Okay.
And that lasted like a year and a half.
Yeah.
So
It
then
looks like you outgrew it.
we blew out the rest, and now the only thing that's left of the barn is the little hallway on the other side and the hayloft.
PP Rouge. I see.
Yeah. Well, we can taste a few things after if you want to.
Sure. Yeah. That would be
Where do you
lovely.
want to go now in terms of?
Yeah. Well, I notice your English isn't a normal Quebecois accent.
Oh.
You have a different history.
My father was born in Scotland. So
Oh, okay.
my name's McDonald, remember?
That's right.
Say it. Okay, let's sit there. Yeah, look, how about this is cozy.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I guess, we've covered a lot already. How is it going with the wine production and everything? And
well,
you're out here in the middle of nowhere. Is that difficult as well?
Yeah. There's worse than this in Quebec, but
just for sales and everything, this is lovely. Like, I love your location,
Yeah.
but I'm thinking practically in terms of like getting customers, traffic,
But it's the same thing with all the other vineyards that are
scattered about.
Yeah, they're mostly scattered. Even in the area where there's a lot of vineyards, like in the Dunham area, their main clientele is not around them. It's in Montreal, Quebec City. So we have the same clients basically.
Got it. So
it's just a pain to deliver.
Right. Are you doing self-delivery? Do you have
we had to, until recently, we had to deliver ourselves.
Okay.
But now we can have a third party. It's recent, like 3 months ago.
Okay.
We haven't tried it yet, but... and so how it's going, we've had ups and downs. 2021 was a fantastic year for everyone, including us. The maturity was really, long, and people produced a lot of wines. And it was during the pandemic, so people bought a lot of wines also. But then they were kind of stuck with them.
Yeah.
Restaurants and so forth, they had a lot of Quebec wines that they didn't know what to do with, because they were still selling the rest of their wine list. So, and then 2023 was a horrible year. It rained all summer. It was just, our production was pathetic. I think that was the year that Deirdre said, she had some wines that were called "This is all there was" or something.
Yeah, that's the year I was. That's
where you were there.
Intern.
Yes,
the end of that year. So
okay.
Harvest wasn't that bad, but you could see the results of that horrible vintage, basically.
Oh yeah, and even what we had in the Marquette, for example, but it helped us to try something new. In the Marquette, we had a new disease that has now appeared in other places in Quebec too. It's called ripe rot. Pourriture de la maturité.
Call it sour rot. I think south of the border. Yeah.
Okay.
Call it sour rot. It's like they split a little and then they start to turn to vinegar on the vine, right? Yeah.
So.
Because of so much water, they overswell, it cracks the skin, and then it lets in the cetobacter.
Well, it's actually there's actually it isn't just the water. There's the coletotrichum, which is the bacteria that is part of that. Anyway, it was new. It was new apparently, according to the agronomists around here.
Wonderful.
So we had that, but we managed to try a Frisante with the Marquette that year, which was fantastic. But we hardly had any. Of course, everything sold out because there wasn't any, but it was good too.
Right.
So last year, because we didn't know how 2024 would be, we actually rented another piece of land, another piece of vineyard from somebody not too far from here who's also organic, and we bought some of those. We took some of those grapes just to make sure we'd have enough, because this year was going to be, sort of a turning point, because we had invested in a lot more equipment. We'd built the cellar and so forth. So this year we're going to have 9,000 bottles, basically, for example, which makes sense because we have 10,000 vines. We should have at least a bottle per.
Yeah.
We should at
least 1,000 younger vines that aren't producing yet. It looks like probably. Yeah.
So that was the other thing, that they weren't all producing. So we got some. But that's something that we don't want to continue. It's something that is a lot of people are doing now in Quebec to be more. Rentable. I'm sorry, I keep thinking of the French word, but to be more profitable is to, increase the volume by buying grapes from somebody else and using their equipment, and even, it's sort of cool now to have une bouteille de négoce. I don't know if where that, which is not something that
custom
was
crush.
Before.
I think is what we call it in the States, custom crush or something. Maybe.
Well, they're basically buying grapes from someone else and making the wine on their premises.
Oh, gotcha. So, okay, yeah. So it's not. It's different than custom crush.
Yeah. So we did it last year, but we already committed to take a bit more this year just in case. Mm-hmm. But the whole idea is that it be from this terroir. So
right.
What more can I say?
Yeah, that's great. What kind of wines are you making? And how do you make those decisions?
Yeah, good question. That's what I started to say down there. One of the things we decided at the very beginning was, since we didn't know how to make wine, grow grapes, make wine, and we didn't know what hybrids really tasted like other than what we had tasted with Deirdre, was to put out only monocépage, so monovarietal wines. No assemblage, no blending, no nothing, until we really got to know the grape, which we do now. I mean, it's our 6th vintage now. So the first few years we had a Saint-Pépin, a Marquette, a La Crescent, and a Petite Perle. Although we did do, starting the first year, we did do carbonic on the Marquette, so we had number 1 and number 2. And we also put, for the Saint-Pépin, we put some in barrels, so we had a number 1 and a number 2 for Saint-Pépin. But we only had 1 La Crescent and 1 Petite Perle. And we went on like that for 3 years, I guess. And then, then in 2023 we did the Frisante, which was a traditional method with the Marquette. Bubbly red, which is cool. There aren't that many of them. And like I said, it disappeared very quickly because there wasn't that much anyway. But and then last year we made our first Pet Nat with Frontenac Blanc. And we made another Frisante, but with Frontenac Noir this time instead of Marquette. So it's different. So 2 fizzies that just came out. And a few years ago, we started making a direct press Petite Perle, a rosé, which is actually pretty dark.
Right.
Because it's a teinturier. It's a grape that is really dark.
Yeah.
That is really...
The juice is also
the
red.
Juices, yeah.
Not just the skin. Yeah.
So it came out... Lo siento. Vamos a mover los asientos.
Sure.
Let's take these.
Yeah.
And we'll just go. We can go in here.
Yeah.
No, vamos a poner asientos aquí y usted puede.
Sí.
Okay. Teníamos demasiado viento fuera para la.
Recording.
La grabadora. I don't say great. Recording or nothing in Spanish. Well, sometimes I say to them, is it registered
I
in
do
your
have a
brain?
large butt, but I mean, please.
Thank you. It's smelling a bit.
Yeah, a little vinegary.
Acidic.
Yeah, a little VA happening. Well,
we'll see.
Yeah.
It could be because the other day I didn't clean the floor after the tastings, but still, it's.
Could be just spill. But good to be aware and
yes,
clean up.
Smelling is a very important sense. Well, we were just saying in there, so we made the first Pet Nat in 2024. In 2023, we made the first blend, which was a blend of Saint-Pépin and La Crescent called hybrid of hybrids. And the other thing we're going to do this year is a maceration of Vidal. Vidal is one of the grapes that we bought. We bought that. Otherwise, Marquette is in barrels. We're going to try to keep it as long as possible. Because that's the other thing I would love to do, is to be able to stabilize the wines by keeping them longer, or stabilize them better than they are.
Yeah,
they're holding very well. People serve them by the glass and so forth. But it's always a fear when you're 0-0.
Yeah,
it's a fear that something will be a surprise.
Right.
Somewhere that you wish it wouldn't.
Yeah, I learned to keep my barrels topped up without any sulfates in them. I developed some mouth in my red that I just let it get down, way too far.
Okay.
No topping up. So, yeah.
No, but just in general, keeping it clean, like that's why this smell is
disturbing.
To deal with it today, because keeping everything clean and because we don't. We're a bit dogmatic on that point. We decided to be 0-0, so we're going to be 0-0.
So you have to be anal
and
about cleanliness.
Probably it costs us some sales because some people add sulfurette bottling, to help with stability and all that. But I mean, I think if you choose something, you want to push it all the way, right?
Yeah.
So, and we're doing our wines are selling very nicely, so They taste okay, obviously, to somebody.
That's the most interesting barrel rack, just as a total
Yeah, it's cool.
aside. I've
Yeah.
never seen one like that.
Yeah, it's very cool. It's Italian.
Huh. That's really
And
interesting.
you can have 100 barrels on. You just add more of those sections.
Yeah, sure.
I've forgotten the name of it right now, but it's pretty cool.
Well, besides the 0-0, are you noticing any like how is the market receiving the grapes that you're growing? And the natural wine market might be a little different.
Yes. So you're just talking about hybrids.
Yeah.
There is still a problem with hybrids, I think, among certain sommeliers. It just depends on what's going on. Like this year, it's like, okay, there's no more California wines in the monopoly.
Right.
I wonder why.
Yeah.
So
I have a fun story.
We need to replace them with something.
I tried to bring you some California wine, by the way.
Oh,
I had to
did you?
leave it at customs because taxes were. I mean,
Oh yeah.
I was going to be paying over $400.
No.
Just for taxes.
Yeah, totally. So they had a nice dinner that night.
Yeah. Hopefully, I told them. I hope they enjoy it.
No, but when we first brought wine back from Deirdre, we had to pay.
Yeah.
Through the nose. So this year the monopoly said, "Oh, maybe we should, encourage more Quebec wines and have more Quebec wines on our, shelves." Yeah, we've been hoping you would do that for 10 years now. In Ontario, they do it. They have whole sections.
Oh, nice.
At the LCBO, but here they're so. Quebec wines are not all made with hybrids, obviously. Especially today, there's a lot of people making wine with vinifera that they cover in the winter with geotextile. So it's delicious.
Are they trying to be? Is a lot of that happening closer to like the St. Lawrence or like
everywhere?
It
happens everywhere. Vinifera now, ever since there's quality geotextile available.
Yeah, they've started.
It's like 10 degrees, 10 degrees immediately higher inside, and you'll visit both Bergeville and Pervenche have vinifera. In fact, the Pervenche have 30-year-old Chardonnay, so there was somebody doing it even before there was decent geotextile that he was using straw, and anyway, he'll tell you all about that.
Okay.
But it's relatively recent that people are growing really good, making really good wine with vinifera in Quebec because of that ability to avoid the winter swings, the temperature swings. But you were asking, so hybrids. It really depends on who you talk to. How open-minded is a sommelier in a restaurant who decides what they're going to put in their cellar? How open are they? How much do they want to support local? How much do they want to be proposing to people? How about trying a Quebec wine?
Right.
We're not there yet, but over time,
How do you do you have to nudge or convince? Have you had any sit-downs with any sommeliers that you've broken through?
We basically get them to taste. It's the only way.
And that's
but it's just more time, more organizing. Can we come and see you?
Right.
I mean, we have an agent now. That helps because they're already plugged with a lot of restaurants, and quite a few Quebec wineries now have agents also doing that. So they because restaurants don't want to be meeting 25 vignerons in a row. Just bring me one list with one guy or one girl.
Right.
So, but otherwise, you're calling them and saying, "Oh, would you like to try our Quebec organic, biodynamic, Melbourne, wonderful, great tasting wine?" And then they say yes or no. So it's a lot of choosing, and then you got to go see them without knowing if they're going to buy. You got to taste. You got to.
Yeah. Got to be
most
scintillating.
Most of the time they feel guilty enough that you came all this way with open bottles that, okay, I'll take a case of something, but it's an expensive case,
Yeah.
So it's we're not there yet, but it's coming. And Deirdre's going to write a book about hybrids, and hopefully it'll exist in French too. So I told her I'd help her translate it.
Yeah.
I'd help her, get it going because there's a whole. In Europe, there's a whole little coterie of people that are into hybrids. They're peewees. They're not the same as our hybrids, but it's just the concept of hybrids, which are like no in France. They're outlawed. So there's a big mindset shift happening there, and hopefully it'll
Have you had some of the peewees? Have you had like Floreal or Voltis?
I haven't, and there's actually a guy here who has some Voltis, I think.
Oh, really?
Another one that starts with an S, I've forgotten.
Sauvignon or...
Yeah, Sauvignon, yeah.
Sauvignon.
Pinarifi, I think that they are doing some of those. So, yeah, I think that's possible too. It's just how cold hardy are they? I guess that's the question.
Yeah, because they're really back crossed to be a pretty high percentage vinifera, so they...
Yeah, high percentage vinifera, and they're chosen. The hybrid part is chosen for its disease resistance rather than its temperature, cold resistance. So, but still, it's just the concept that hybrids can be as good as vinifera is a huge mindset shift for France for sure, and the rest of the world by extension.
Yeah, it's a common theme. I'm talking a lot about it too. I'm doing a book as well that includes more than just hybrids, but definitely hybrids is part of it, and then a conference about hybrids in January at UC Davis.
Oh yeah, fantastic. That'd be great.
So that should be
Are there a lot of California wineries?
No, none. There's one.
No, one. Okay.
There's one. There are two, and there are a couple that have them growing by virtue of trial or necessity. Like we have a thing called Pierce's disease that we have to deal with, and really the only way to ecologically deal with that is have resistant or tolerant varieties of grapes, because otherwise you have to do pretty intense pesticides and elimination of anything that grows besides the vine, basically.
That's how it used to be in the old days.
So there's a couple of people that have planted them as like riparian buffers. Some of the big wineries, even some big Napa wineries have used a riparian buffer of some hybrids. And then there's a guy who replanted his whole vineyard with hybrids because he lost his Syrah to Pierce's disease, and so it's a high pressure area, and he's like, why am I going to replant with something that will die again in 5 to 10 years?
And are those peewees that you planted?
So no, they're University of California, Davis actually bred specifically for Pierce's disease resistance. But the thing that is so strange about the way that they went about this, like their first generation of these Pierce's disease resistance thing, they bred only for Pierce's disease resistance. So it's 97% vinifera and then 3% Vitis arizonica to have the genetic component that is Pierce's disease tolerant. Okay. And I'm like, what about the other? Like, why not make it now? Now they're breeding. Next gen is Pierce's and powdery resistant, and the rest is vinifera. And I'm like, who cares about the vinifera? Just blend that we can have some great grapes here.
Yeah, but that's that old.
That's
mindset.
the mindset.
Vinifera is king, and
right.
So and of course, all hybrids contain vinifera, but in some cases,
there are, but not all. I mean, if you think about there's a lot of there are rootstocks that are hybrids that are multiple North American species crosses that aren't we just don't consider them hybrid because we're so vinifera centric we come from that culture, but any interspecies cross is a hybrid.
It is.
It doesn't have to include vinifera. I think vinifera, it makes sense for it to be included right now, but I think it's only a matter of time before we start seeing crosses that don't include vinifera.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah,
But because I think, what are we trying to do? We're trying to make a beverage that is fun to drink, fun to look at, smells good, gets friendships happening, builds relationships. It's all about the vibe around the vine. It's not about, is it more like thrills or like soap,
right.
You like it or not?
Right.
Is it, you want another glass? Is it, do you feel like more? That's what we want. We want people to have fun drinking it and enjoy it, and the fruits of our labor are basically just taking it in and talking to it and taking care of it and being nice to it until it gives you something,
Yeah, that's fun.
So that's kind of what we're doing.
So
now we have it would have been nice to start 20 years earlier in our case.
With everything.
Yes, but then you didn't have the wisdom, but we didn't need it, but we didn't have the time.
Right.
But now, we're tired,
Yeah. It's a lot of work, right? Yeah.
It's a lot of work, and it's great that we have seasonal workers, and we have to get seasonal workers because local people don't want to work hard.
Right.
I mean, I don't want to generalize, but agriculture is not something that attracts a lot of people.
Right.
The hard work part. we had some local people at the beginning, and it's like 10 o'clock, and you haven't heard a thing, so it's like I text them, are you coming today?
Yeah.
Oh, my back hurts a little bit, and I think it's going to rain this afternoon. Yesterday was hard, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so you're not coming today, I guess, right?
Wow, yeah.
So it's difficult. These guys, structurally, it's perfect because they want to work hours. They want to work hard so that you'll have them back, and they want to work as many hours as possible so they can send them home too.
Right, yeah.
So, structurally, systemically, it's a perfect model. It's
right.
just a drag that, you can't use your local people. But otherwise, there's so much room here.
Yeah.
We could plant more, we could make it bigger, we could do, but...
Yeah, when's your front 20 going to be
full?
Exactly,
right? But no, we're good with what we have now.
Yeah, I was going to say, right.
And even in the cellar, it's a lot of work,
Yeah.
I mean, just labeling.
Yeah, right. Is there an infrastructure here yet where you have any kind of, services that...
There are.
Okay.
I think there's one or two.
Okay.
People who can come and bottle.
Okay.
They bring a huge truck with everything in it. And,
beautiful. Okay, cool.
And,
so you can do that.
It doesn't sort of fit with our ethos, of artisanal, but
right.
But yeah, it's
you
possible.
could do it if you if it got to a scale where you were just like, ooh, no way we can do this by ourselves.
Sure, and I suppose then you'd have the money to pay for it.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's not cheap, and there's like a minimum that you have to reach until it makes sense financially. Anyway, because if you brought them in for 1,000 bottles, they'd be like,
yeah, exactly.
That'll be $10 a bottle.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
because you have to think of that. You have to think of it in terms of the value of the whole enterprise. It was fun having only 1 hectare, and with the number of bottles that we had, 3,000 bottles or whatever. It was like it really felt very cozy, like making things in your kitchen or your garage.
Yeah.
But then we realized, the equipment, it's empty most of the time. It's the infrastructure, and that's when we said we're going to have to plant. It's 10,000 plants is sort of like the minimum. It's the break-even point,
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So.
Right. So you started down that slippery slope.
We did, but it's fun because we're trying other varietals. Mm-hmm. We also have a chance to redo the trellising properly, which is over there. We're in repair mode. You learn. We're starting to learn things now.
Yeah.
After 6 vintages, you only have once a year to learn something. So.
Yeah.
And plus, when you get around to it, you say, what did I do last year? Oh, if you didn't write it down, you can't remember. Shoot.
Yeah, the vineyard is a little easier that way because you can see your mistakes. In the wine, it's like, what did I do? I don't even remember how I made the wine last year. Well, luckily for you,
we don't do that much.
You don't do that much, so it's pretty easy to remember that. Yeah.
There's not a lot of things to write down except the evolution, over time. What was it like in December? What was it like in February? How did it evolve? Was it different last year to this year? But we kind of, I'm not maniacal about that because it is what it is. You get what you get after the season that you had, and everything is new.
So do you do tastings here at all? Can people come and
we
set an appointment?
We're not open to the. Yes, by appointment. If somebody begs, if we met them already, then yes.
Right,
but if they're
I do remember
a random
begging
person
to be able to get here. That was part of. I remember. Yeah.
No, you didn't beg, did you? Oh no, I didn't answer you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
That'll do
See?
it. That'll do it. We're not open to the public because it's just impossible. You need people, or you need a lot of family who's
who can give their time to do it. Yeah.
But one thing I've been thinking of in the Deirdre model is some pop-ups. Organizing maybe 4 times in the summer where we're open and anybody can come and taste and have a picnic, or some places serve food, cute snacks, as Deirdre says.
Yeah.
Another guy that I know does raclette. He serves cheese plates while they taste his cider. So,
speaking of which, would you like to have some cheese and taste some of your wines? I have cheese.
I like to?
We brought cheese. If you have wine.
Yeah, because you don't have wine. You like
right.
Sure.
I wish I could. Okay. Before I stop this, what are ways people can learn more about you? You have a website, right?
Yes.
Is it
we have
operating?
a website, Domaine Oak Hill. .vin.wine.
.vin.wine.
Yeah.
Really?
.wine redirects to .vin.
Oh,
because it's only in French at the moment, but
Yeah.
it will be in English as soon
But
as I
if
get
you
around
use
to it.
Google will help translate it.
Google will translate it, of course. So it's got information. It's got the technical sheets of our wines. It's got places you can buy our wines, or you can find our wines in restaurants or buvettes, or you can buy them in grocery stores. So everything's listed and relatively up to date on there. And I would say just be open to Quebec wines, hybrids, natural wines, 0.0. Be open-minded. See what you think.
Yeah.
See if you like it or not.
Oh, amazing. All right, cool. Hey, thanks so much for listening. And if you enjoyed this, there is some great audio where Louise takes us through step by step and philosophically, theoretically, the whole gamut of how she makes her carbonic petite pearl. It is a pretty incredible process. It becomes funny and hilarious by the end because we've finished a bottle of wine. It's a wine tasting with technical wine tasting that leads into just hilarity. And that will be on our Patreon. And you can subscribe. That subscription link is in the show notes always. Thank you so much for listening.